Hello and welcome to this number 23, where I'm talking about marketing strategy. And this is the foundation. This is the first level. I've got three more of these strategies, which you will see and understand a bit more as we go along. But essentially, the way I look at it, it's my recommendations and advice for the companies I work with. Now, this happens to be the foundation level, so it's mainly for startups and maybe businesses who are new to marketing. But really, everything that I've gained over the last 10 years of working in Rather Inventive, talking to over 500 businesses now, I put in the key elements and things that I think people need to do into this foundation strategy. Now, just to give you a little bit of background on it, it actually all came from an idea many years ago called Ticked Off. And this was an application that effectively did the same sort of thing. My idea was that I would drip feed people little tasks that they needed to do, and that through over the course of days, weeks, or maybe over the course of the year, they would move forward their marketing step by step, ticking off the tasks as they go. And actually, people signed up to it, people used it. But one of the biggest comments I got from it is that many people weren't sure of, they didn't see the whole strategy because I was just drip feeding them bits at a time. And a lot of people wanted to see kind of everything. They wanted a sneak peek in advance to see what they needed to do. Maybe they wanted to skim through certain elements of it so that they could cherry pick the elements and tasks that they wanted to achieve. So I felt actually that I should bring all of it onto into effectively a blog post and allow people to walk through it on their own. It's also got a lower barrier to entry because this is just a blog post that's available to everyone else, everyone publicly. So anyway, this is basically, I'm going to be walking through this. It's the first time I've kind of done it like this. I mean, I've often done walkthroughs before, but this is actually me walking through one of my own blog posts, which will be quite interesting. Anyway, a little bit of background for those who don't know me. My name's Ben. Hello. As I said, I've worked with over 500 businesses now, certainly within Rather Inventive, helping them be better in business in one way or another, usually coming at it from a marketing perspective. I help with marketing strategy, very relevant today. We do web development as well. We help with video editing and production. Claire, one of my colleagues, works on that, and data analysis, as well as working on and bringing in other people in areas of social, copywriting, photography, and so on. We've got tons of webinars. I mean, this is the 23rd. It's almost 2 years since we started doing these. And so we've got a lot of other different topics, a variety of different topics that you should check out in the Inventive Marketing Club. Clubhouse. There's also a podcast as well. So if you're like me and you find video too much to commit to sometimes, you can just listen to all of these videos as a podcast. And then if you need to look at the video, you can dive in and pick the videos that are relevant to you. But actually, the podcast should work really well if I'm doing my job correctly. If you need anything, do get in touch. You can contact me, support@ratherinventive.com. Okay, we're just going to dive straight into the walkthrough. So let's see how I can do this. If I share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. Okay, so I'm going to take you through this blog post just bit by bit. I'm going to cherry pick some of the things that I think are relevant for you, but really all of the tasks on here are pretty much things that I'd recommend to every single company. Some may apply, some may not apply. Certainly pick what you want to achieve and what you can do, but I'm just going to walk through the key things to me. I've just given a little table of contents at the top to allow you to return back to this page time again. So we've got little categories here for planning, analytics, website stuff, things to do with search optimization and content, social media, and then just general business stuff. And in this guide, you can jump to any particular one of those. You can keep returning back to this page. I will update it from time to time if we add other tasks or find out maybe a little bit of extra advice I can put into here or additional tasks. I'll be adding them on, but it'll be your resource that you can keep jumping onto whenever you like. So let's start in the planning section. And the very first thing I've put at the top, which I'm not sure everyone does, and I put my hand up sometimes. I don't do this enough, and it's something I look to really try and do at least once a year, and that's to look forward about what I want to achieve in the next year, in the next 12 months. And the reason for this is that I found, and many people have said, is that if you start thinking about what you want to achieve personally, so I'm not talking about what your business is going to achieve, but what do you want? How do you want to work? How do you want to spend time with your family? Do you want to go on more holidays? Do you want to have more time at home, more time available for that, for family and friends? Maybe you've got some personal projects you want to spend time on. Think about those. Think of 3, 4, 5, whatever you want, but think of 3 things that you would like to do over the next 12 months personally. And there's a good quote from Tony Robbins here. Setting goals is the first step to turning the invisible into the visible. And that's why I think it's important to do, because until you think about what you want to achieve, it's really difficult to move in that direction. But once you say, I want to make sure I finish work every day at 5 o'clock. I don't want to work on the weekends. I just want to work on the jobs that I like and with the clients that I want to work on. And you might find that none of it's to do with money. There might be a certain element where you find, actually, I need a certain level of income. But most things, most goals and objectives, you tend to find are to do with you and how you want to live. I've also put here, make them specific. So to try and be specific about what you want to achieve, it's difficult to achieve a goal, or maybe it's very easy to achieve a goal if it's too woolly, but also make them achievable. So things you can do. So don't say, I want to achieve a £1 million pound turnover if really your business just isn't going to work like that. But this is the first step to planning your marketing, and if not your business, really. It's so core to any business to think about where you want to be and make it personal to you. And if you can, if you've got a partner or family, it might be good to get them involved and find out what they want to do. So linked in with that, number 2 is to take those objectives, if you will, and then start thinking about how you might achieve them. And the nice thing about this process is you've already started to break down what is ultimately quite a complex thing. You know, how you're meant to go about achieving these particular tasks can be quite tough if you start thinking about them all together. But if you break them down, maybe split them down into 3 and then take each of those and then start splitting them down a bit more, that's going to make things a whole lot easier to approach. So take your first one. Maybe it's that you want to stop working at 5 o'clock and think about how you're going to achieve that. What can you do to make sure that you put your pen down, log out of the computer and go and spend some time with your family? Maybe there's other things you want to start doing. One of the things I find really useful in that respect would be to start putting more stuff in your diary so you don't fill it up with more work. Make sure that you put things you enjoy in your diary in the evening, and then you're not going to think you can put work time in that place. I can't say how you're going to achieve all of your objectives, but think through 3 of them and then spend some time writing down how you're going to achieve that, what you are going to do step by step, just to make some meaningful movement towards completing them. And you know what? Don't worry if you never quite get to it. But as long as you're always moving towards it, you will feel like you are having success, and that will motivate you further. And you will get better at this process. But just take baby steps to begin with. So they're 2 really good things to do. And I can't, they are incredibly powerful in terms of running your business and having time to yourself. By all means, we're talking about marketing. So it might be that one of the things that you want to achieve is you want to achieve a certain turnover or profit, which is better. So certainly put in maybe that you want to achieve 50,000 profit, and then start writing down how you're going to achieve that. And it might be that you'll need to start looking at selling more products, charging more for products. Maybe there are some costs that need to be reduced. This process helps you look at lots of different areas, but don't worry too much about getting all right. Just list down what you think you need to achieve. The next step, really, and this is on the road to branding, really. And as I said, this is all of the foundation level. So we're not going to go into too much depth in each area. But, as a new business or a business that is just starting to do its marketing, you need to start getting things out there. You don't want to delay, I don't think. You don't want to spend ages spending time with a branding consultant or getting your logo done or worrying too much about things specifically. But maybe you want to get out networking. You want to start developing your website. You want to start doing some of your marketing and talking to people, getting onto social media. Before you do that, it is worth just thinking a little bit about how you help people. So that's what task number 3 is about. If you can encapsulate how you help people in 20 words, that's something that can be used in many different ways. Think of it like your elevator pitch. If you meet someone, they say, "Oh, so what do you do?" You've already got some loose idea about how you can help them or what you can do to make their life better. I do try and think about the elevator pitch or your company strapline as a way of helping people achieve their goals. Now, I actually talk more about that in a Marketing Boost webinar I've got and the other webinars as part of this, as part of the Marketing Club, where we look more about and talk more about the audience, who they are, understanding what motivates them. So if you can incorporate some of that into your strapline, all the better. So I've given an example here for Rather Inventive that we could say, Rather Inventive helps businesses build a better marketing strategy so they can easily and repeatably attract more leads. And what I was trying to get at there is being specific about what we do. So we do help businesses with a marketing strategy. Now, that's quite broad. We might want to go into detail. We may want to even be more specific if relevant, but better marketing strategy is a good starting point. But there's 2 key things here. So we can help them with that, but you might want to almost answer the question that your customer is asking when they're reading that first part and saying, well, so what? So you can build me a better marketing strategy, but how does that help me? And so I added on to there that we can do that easily and repeatably. And that's really nice for a business to have things that aren't hard for the individuals in the business to do. And there's something they can do repeatably and with confidence. And then ultimately it's to attract more leads. That might turn into lots of different things, but ultimately I hope that's going to be more business and more profit. So whatever your strapline is, whatever you're selling, just try and think about how you help people, what they will achieve by you helping them, what their end goals are, and then try and wrap that into some kind of strapline and statement that you could use to explain your business very succinctly to someone else. Okay, next, once you've done that, and this is where I go on in my webinars to talk more about your customer and delving deep into who they are. But something fun you can do to begin with, which is task number 4, is to describe them in 5 words. And I always use Alex, who's pictured here. Alex Kopok, he's one of my favorite clients. I love Alex and worked with him for a long time. He is an architect based in Hereford. And the reason I like Alex, and I use him as my example, is because he's a professional. He pays on time. I like working with him. And I think they are all important things. Certainly if you're in the relationship business or a business to business, that it's important that you like who you work with. And so I want to find more customers like Alex. So when I'm starting to think about my ideal customer and who I want to attract, I look at the people I already like working with, and Alex always springs to mind. So the key thing to do here is to think about the positive attributes that identify them, have a bit of fun if you can, and then just write that in 5 words. Now, I'll be honest, 5 words is an arbitrary number, but it's a small amount of words, so it forces you to focus on what matters to you. So I've put for Alex, he's a passionate professional Mac user, and he's 40 or roughly 40. Don't want to give away too much there. The reason I say use those words is Alex is a passionate professional. He's an architect, but he also loves what he does, which is key, I think. Certainly if I'm helping someone with their marketing, I want to find people who love what they do, who enjoy what they do, and I can use that to come across on their website, in videos, and in their emails. If I don't have that, it's really hard to do my job. And I don't want my job to be hard. I want it to be as easy as possible. And I just facilitate the words and the video and put that into the right place. So I want a passionate professional. The professional bit, he's an architect. He studied for a long time. I think it's about 5 years for an architect. You correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. And so he knows what he's talking about. That, again, makes it easier for me to share that with other people, because people want to buy a professional. They want to buy a consultant. And so there's a lot of stuff we can do in the marketing realm to share his expertise to attract people who want to look for someone like that. Mac user, it's just because I use a Mac. So anything I recommend software wise is going to work well for Alex. And so I look for other people who are Mac users too. Doesn't mean I won't work with people who use PCs. It's just a lot easier for me. And Alex is around my age. I think when I wrote this, we were both around 40. I've aged a little bit, but essentially around that sort of age is what I'm looking for. Again, it doesn't matter. I've just found that people around my age become the ideal customer. It's usually because slightly older people have more time, more money available than they do time. And so they're willing to pay someone else to save them the time. That's all. So that's all you need to do in this one, is just think about your ideal customer. If you're already an ongoing business, if you're a startup, just think about who you might like to work with. Just have a guess, and it's something you can refine on a regular basis. Okay, we'll skip number 5 and just go on to number 6, which is just an easy one, really. You listen to an interview I had with Gina Gagan about how she started her drinks business, Wild Fizz Kombucha. Now, they're on a bit of a hiatus at the moment due to the pandemic. However, she's got a great story in terms of how she started, where it started from, and how she runs a business now. It's definitely worth listening to if you're certainly a startup or you need some inspiration in your marketing journey. It's not too long, and it's quite interesting finding out about how she works. She's a very passionate individual. At number 7, always a good one. Sign up to my marketing club. It's completely free for most people, and you're going to get regular tips and advice on marketing. So that's an easy one to check off your list. Just click on that link and you can sign up. Okay, so that's kind of covered off the planning section. And if anything, I would spend more time on your planning than anything else, really, because every sort of hour you spend there is going to save you so much time in the future. Moving on to the next section, we've got analytics. So this is all of the data and stats that we want to collect. We're not going to do too much with it right now. All I want you to do is start setting things going. So in the future, and when it comes to looking at the other strategy levels, we've got something to work with. First thing to do is set up your Google account. Now, if you don't have a Google account already, then set one up for the business. Maybe call it, use your full company name, like mycompanyname@gmail.com. And most of the stuff I'm going to recommend in terms of services requires a Google account of some sort. So make sure that's set up in advance so it's nice and easy for you to do so. If you have one already, no problem, just carry on and use that. So the first thing to set up is a Google Analytics profile. Now, if you've not used Google Analytics before, it can be a little overwhelming. Basically, Google Analytics is a statistics package that gives you the numbers of people visiting your website. So it tells you how many people are visiting, what page, when they're visiting, and where they came from. And so they're the useful bits of information I find. And you can use that to help you understand what how your marketing's working, maybe whether your social media posts are working well, which pages people prefer, maybe if you've got a sales funnel where people move from one page, a blog post, through to a landing page, through to a form, you can see where they're dropping off and where you need to improve things. So Google Analytics is a really useful tool, but it can be a bit overwhelming in the data it provides you. However, it's worth adding on and spending a bit of time with it later on. And in fact, number 10 is a beginner's guide to Google Analytics, where I go through the key things I feel you need to know about it, what the terminology is, which are my favorite reports, and that sort of thing. So definitely worth doing that and having a read through that once you set up Google Analytics. And if you're not sure if you want to set it up, read through the guide first. But essentially, with setting up Google Analytics, you will need to, with your Google account, just search for Google Analytics and go and create a new account, create a profile. And then once you've finished that process, it's all reasonably self-explanatory as you go through. Google will give you a code, a tracking code, and you can add that to your website. For WordPress websites, we often use a plugin called Monster Insights. And so you'll just put the code into that. Or you can actually log into your Google account via Monster Insights, and it connects the dashboard, a little stats dashboard, into WordPress. But the reason I use that is because it can do other things like anonymize the IP address, which is great for GDPR. It can track downloads, and it integrates all the code needed for e-commerce. So it kind of does everything for you. If you get stuck, I've put some links to Analytics Setup Guide and also the Monster Insights plugin as well. Do read the guide. It's worth, it's just going to give you a head start really on the terms. Next is to verify your website on Google Search Console. So Google Analytics is great for getting data about who's doing what on your website. Google Search Console is absolutely a fab tool for understanding how you are getting found on Google Search. So what it's going to give you once you've signed up to it and verified your profile, your property, is it's going to show you the number of times you come up in Google Search. It's going to tell you how many people click through to your website from Google Search. And it's also going to tell you what keywords you're found for. It's absolutely fab. And if you're doing search engine optimization, you need this tool installed. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to Google Search Console. You need to sign up, and then you need to add your website or property, as it's called. Now, the best way to do this is through, you need to verify ownership of the domain name. It will take you through that process. You will need access to wherever your domain name is. So if you're using 123reg or fasthost for your domain name, then you'll need access to that control panel, because it's going to give you a little bit of code that you go and put in there. It's not the easiest thing to do, but if you've already got a web developer or someone who manages that for you, it's going to give you the code and you can hand it to them. Or better yet, you can ask them to do this process for you. If you can't add in a record into your domain name, then if you've already got Google Analytics installed on your website, then you can also verify using that code too. It's not the best way to do it, but you can do it that way as well. Once you've got Google Search Console on, then you'll get all this lovely data, and it's really useful in terms of understanding what's going on with your site, what keyword position you are, and if there's any problems to the site, which we'll come to later on. Okay, next on the list, the category is website. So this is just really getting started on, I'm assuming you'll have some sort of website. If you don't, then you can just skip this section and come back to it. If you do, fab, then you can just use this to get you started, and we'll take you through some more advanced things with your website in the pro and expert levels. But for now, all we're going to do is, for number 13, is just to see where you are, grade your performance. And this could be a really useful tool just to do on a regular basis, just to gauge whether you are improving or not. As you get more advanced with optimizing and improving your website, there are better tools out there, but this is just a good place to get you started. So head over to Website Grader from HubSpot. HubSpot is a tool which allows you to manage content and a customer relationship manager. And basically, it's a marketing tool that combines all of that together so you've got a nice marketing funnel process. And so this is a free tool they provide as a way of sort of leading into their system. But you can use it on its own. You don't need an account. So you head over to the Website Grader and you enter in your website and your email address. It takes a few moments, then it's going to spit out something that looks like this, and it's going to give you a performance level. Oh no, we need to do a little bit of work on our site. Now, if you scroll down, you may not understand everything that comes up, but there may be some little things that you can do, or if not, you can just print this out to a PDF and send it to your web developer and say, hey, I noticed there's some things wrong here. Can you help me out? Are they an issue? It may be that they're not an issue, or it may be that there's some plugins on your site that just don't allow you to get a perfect score on here. Don't worry if you can't, but it's a good idea just to run this so you get an understanding of where you are. If you do need help throughout all of this, I've also given links to our Inventive People website where you can buy time from someone like me or someone else to help with this sort of stuff if you don't have that, if you don't have a web developer on hand. So that's the first thing to do, sort of understand where your website is right now. Before you make any changes to your website, take a backup. Now, there's different ways to do this depending on how your website is made. If you're on Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, Shopify, they all have limited ways of backing up the website because they host everything for you. They're assuming that that you will leave it to them to back up the website. However, what I mean by making a backup of your website is if you make a mistake, delete a page, change content, and you didn't mean to, and you need to come back to fix it later on. So sometimes they have an export option which allows you to take some of the data off in a text format or maybe an XML format. If all else fails, you can just use in Chrome, you can print a PDF and just print off some of the key pages. So if you need to recreate the content, at least you've got it there to hand, because when we build websites, I find the slowest element is thinking up of what to say. And if you've already done that, you can just copy and paste it into a website quite quickly to rebuild it. If you're hosting the website yourself, maybe you've got a self-hosted WordPress website, perhaps your hosting provider has a backup service already in place. Some hosts, including the one we use, have a snapshot feature, so you can go in and just take like an instant copy of the website and database as it stands, that if you make a big mistake, you can roll back to the previous version. And also, if you can, download a copy of it so you've got it on your computer, should the worst happen. I'm not saying it will, and mostly it doesn't, but you want to make sure you've got a backup. I've got a link on here to a small guide on how to back up your WordPress website to protect it. But if you're using Wix or Squarespace or a site manager like that, you're going to need to find out how they do that. Now, this was partly shown on the website grader, but task number 15 is all about checking how fast your website loads. Now, this is really important for search optimization, which is the next section, because the faster your website loads, the more likely you are to, well, it's going to be a comparison between you and the other people coming up in search. So you want your website to load fast because that's going to save Google's time, and it's also going to save your visitors' time when they're on your site. If it's nice and snappy and it loads fast, then you've got more chance they're going to stay on it without bouncing. So I try and aim with a website to be under 2 seconds. So you can see our performance grades come up at 1.6 seconds. That varies for us. Often we get it down to much less than a second, like 0.5 seconds. So maybe you're having a bad day at the time. But maybe there's some things we could do. Maybe we put a plugin that's actually slowing the site down a little bit. So it just gives you an idea to investigate. But if your website loads in under 2 seconds, don't worry about it for the moment. That's good. That's a good speed. If it's loading in more than 2 seconds, then there are some things you can do. So the key things to look at and just broad advice are, make sure all your images are compressed. If you've got images that are too big, it will slow down the website because it has to load the full image before it shows. So you want to make sure they're as big as they need to be and no bigger, and then compress them. So use a tool like ImageOptim is a really good tool for the Mac. If you're using WordPress site, make sure you remove any plugins, because sometimes they can leave extra code in that loads. And if you're not needing that code, it's just going to slow it down. And make sure you're using cache. All that means is that once the website pages load, it stores a copy of those sort of finished loaded pages ready just to fling to the visitor much more quickly than having to load the files, load the database, compile everything together, and then send it to the customer. So a caching will speed things up massively. hopefully you've got a hosting provider who has caching. If not, there are plugins you can get for WordPress to do that. Next on the list is task number 16. So for this, you need to refer back to Google Search Console. Now we've got it set up. We can actually go and make sure there are no errors on the website. Now, I've given an example here that's maybe got a lot of errors just to show how that works. But the errors are usually highlighted in Google Search Console if you go into the coverage section. Often it will highlight them out for you. And in fact, it may even send you an email with those errors as they come up. So it's worth investigating them. And the reason for the errors are maybe the Google crawler has gone around your site and found pages that just don't work. Maybe they're coming up as a 404 or not found error. Maybe you're getting 500 errors, which means the server is having a problem and giving a server error, a 500 error. I don't know what they are. I mean, Google will tell you what the errors are. Maybe you have enough technical nous to fix it, which is great. Maybe you need to go to your host and ask them what's going on. I've often found that some websites, if they're finding it difficult to contact the database server, or there's too many sites on a shared hosting service, they come up with 500 errors. So maybe you need to move to a new service hosting provider, or you want to speak to your web developer and say, look, can we get rid of some of these errors? Because they may impact you, your search engine ranking position, because the more errors you've got, the sort of Google might take a dim view on that. It also may be that those pages are key to being indexed. And if they're erroring and they're not coming up, they're not working for Google, then they won't be working for visitors as well. So it's absolutely core that you go into Google Search Console, look at the coverage section and find the errors. There are other things in here. I'm not going to go to them, whether they're valid or excluded. It's just the errors we're focused on right now. What else have we got here? I think the next section would be to check whether you've got all of the relevant bits on your website to make sure you're legal. Now, I've got a great podcast here, so I'm not going to reiterate it too much, but you can watch this podcast. It's not too long. And I talked to Sarah Dixon from the Contract Store, where she goes through what you need to have on your website, whether it's just a regular website or an e-commerce one. But in brief, every website, if they're a business, you need to publicly share your company name, where you're registered, your registered address, and some form of email contact. You also need to say what you are. You're a charity, sole trader. I've given some links to regulations that from the UK to basically give you a bit more detail on that, and a link through to the blog where we've got the whole entire video, although you can watch it here. And it's just a really good primer if you're not sure, because I found a lot of people just don't have some basic details on their website. And you've got to think it's good to have some core details on your website anyway if people are looking to contact you, which is absolutely key. So do go through and just make sure you've got the key things that you need on your website to make sure that you are legal. Related to that is to make sure you're compliant with GDPR. Now, this task is just to make sure you've got a cookie policy on your website. That is by far, that's not the main, that's not all you need to do, but that's all I want you to do right now is just make sure you have some kind of notice that comes up on your website telling people that you use cookies, because if you're having Google Analytics on your site, then you will be. Perhaps you've got a Facebook pixel or other things on your site that need cookies as well. So you need to have a cookie policy come up on your website that links through to your privacy policy, where you explain what you do with them. So I've given you a link to the ICO website, which explains about cookies. It's a bit detailed, but it's the technical sort of main canonical reference for cookies, really. Also, we've got a blog post on called Boiling Down the Essentials in GDPR, which I believe Claire wrote, my colleague, talking through the key things you need to look at in GDPR. So that's all we're going to look at on the website. Now we're going to move to SEO and content. So first, I think the key thing when it comes to search engine optimization is just to have a good understanding about what it is, and then you can start building your strategy. So I think the first thing you should do is just watch this video. This is another one of our podcasts. I don't think it's too long, maybe 15 minutes. And it's going to give you an idea of what search engine optimization is, how it benefits you, and then talking about the sort of structure of your website and the strategy you want to take just to get you started. There's actually more podcasts in this series that go into it in more depth. Some of them will be linked in here, but there is more information. But if you're starting off and you want to get found in Google search, then this is absolutely key that you watch this. And why is search engine optimization so important? A lot of people are using social, and social media is really good if you want to maybe communicate with your audience or customers. It's really good for finding new people who might like your service or might like to communicate with you. But SEO, what's great about SEO is that you can do work like putting out help topics, putting out useful videos, much like this one. You put those out onto the web for people to find when they're ready. One of the problems I find with social media is you need to be on it. You need to be ready to communicate, to engage, to have a conversation, to share. And that takes effort, which is fine. But I think part of that effort shouldn't be just all the time on social media. You should put some of the effort into what you do, into search engine optimization on your website, so that when people are ready and they're interested in something they want of yours, then you've already thought about it in advance, and you're already in Google, the Google index. So when they search for help on creating an SEO strategy, for example, you've got the resources there that hopefully will be found. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the exact details on how to do that, but it's just good to start that process. And so that's what we're going to be talking about here. So anyway, there's a link through to what keywords are and why they're important from Yell, and also a link through to this blog post to give you more information on the strategy. Okay, let's skip on to these and let's look at keywords. Once you understand what you want to achieve, I think the biggest and hardest thing to do in SEO is actually understanding what's the right keyword to use. Now, the best thing to do is just to search for the keywords you think would be relevant to your audience and what people might type in, and just search for those on Google and see what comes up. See what other competitors come up, and just do some basic competitor research. Don't spend too long on it, but just look at the first three that come up and look at the keywords they're using. You can also use Google Trends as a way to see whether the keywords you like are going up, so more people are searching for them over time, down, or they're staying the same. And that's going to give you a loose idea on the number of searches as well. But also another tool you can use, which is slightly further down in task number 25, is the Google Keyword Planner. So once you've got some ideas about what you should do, what your keywords are, you then need to start thinking about that in a bit more detail and start looking at maybe if there are any alternative keywords you could use, what the volume of searches are per month. So Google Keyword Planner is a really good way of finding out in a bit more detail which are the best keywords to use. And the reason you want keywords that a lot of people search for is that that's where the traffic is. That's where people are going. They're typing in tax advice. Do I need an accountant? Bookkeeping tips. They're the keywords they're using. They're typing in. Now, set up auto-enrollment pension. People are typing that in, but it's such a small number that you just need some advice or help on choosing the right ones. There's also another tool called Moz Keyword Explorer. I've linked them all here for you. Now, SEO, you can go into absolute detail, and we will do in the pro and expert levels. But what I want you to do here is just research your primary keyword. And what I mean by that is the main keyword that defines your business. If you're an accountant, maybe that's going to be an accountant and your location, accountant Cirencester. It could be, just think about the sort of business you are, think about the keyword, the main keyword that works for your business, and localize it if possible. So that's what all of these tasks from 23 to 25 talk about. It's like going through this keyword research process. If you need any help, obviously you can get in touch through one of the links on here. I think we'll here is for task number 26, we've got Google Search Console. This is just worth having a look at. Don't worry about doing too much right now, but just have a look at it just to get a feel for the data. Take the keyword that you've researched, maybe it's accountant, Cyrus Esther, for example, and just go through this process of finding out what current position you are now. Because if you're going to do SEO, we need to know where you are now so we can see if you're improving. So I've given some instructions on how to do that. Just go into the performance, add in a new query, type in your keyword, and then once you've entered that, make sure you tick average position, and you're going to see all the keywords that include accountant, Cyrus Esther, for example, and the position you are in search. So it's going to give you an idea of where you are already. And then once you do that, make sure once you've got an idea what those keywords are, add them back into your website. You know, you're not going to get the benefit from doing all of that keyword research unless you add those words onto your page. So it's absolutely important you do that. If you become a pro member of the Marketing Club, then there are plenty of workshops, webinars where you can go and find out how to do that whole process of search optimization and then implementing it onto your website. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a guide here. You want to make sure that you have your keywords in your meta tag, your meta title tag, and your page description. So that's what gets shown in the Google search results, but also your H1 tag, which is the main title shown on the page. Now, depending on the system you use, they will be shown and edited in different places. So I can't go into all of them now, but if you're using something like WordPress, make sure you've got a plugin called Yoast. That will allow you to edit the title and description on the page, as well as the H1. You can edit in the normal WordPress editor. So make sure you install Yoast. In HTML, if you're hand coding or your HTML, then you probably know this already, but you want to look for the title tag. Literally, there's a tag in there, bit of text, and you can just change the title in it. Okay, so moving on, task number 28 just encourages you to go and look at your page titles and descriptions in Google search to make sure they're engaging enough that people want to click through on them. So you've done your keyword research, you've put them onto the page, and once that's been indexed, which might take a week, a month, depends on how often Google comes back to your website, go and look at your page titles and see how they come up. Make sure they're interesting, make sure people want to click on it, and make sure it stands out from the competition as well. You know, if you're coming up on page 1, you're going to be competing with the other people there and all the other traffic. So make sure your listing stands out with what's relevant to your customer. And just to finish off here, I have a good conversation with Chris, who's a colleague of mine. He's a real expert in SEO, talking about how he ranked his own website, Utility Saving Expert, to compete against some big comparison sites. And that's really where he's learned his knowledge of SEO from many years of trying to rank his site well. So do listen to this if you want to sort of follow along to how someone else has done that on their own website. You can listen to that. Okay, social media. So I'm not going to talk too much about social media here because there's a lot of things you need to cover. We'll cover that in the pro section of our marketing strategy, but there are a couple of things that you do need to do. Make sure you've got a personal LinkedIn profile. That's what task 30 covers. And the reason for this is when people search for you on Google, one of the first entries is likely to be from LinkedIn. So if they're going to search for you, and particularly if you're building up relationships, that's your business like I am, people are going to search for your name. You're going to come up with a LinkedIn profile. They're going to click on that and they're going to read what's on the LinkedIn profile. So I would make sure you've got an up-to-date photo, not one of you that's at a wedding where you've cut out your partner. Maybe there's a bit of drink in your hand. Get a proper photo of you taken if you can, a professional photo. If not, just take a really good selfie or ask someone else to take a photo of you. Camera phones are great nowadays, so there should be no excuse for that. Just a couple of tips on lighting. If you do take your own photograph, make sure you're standing ideally outside with the sunlight on your face. It'll look so much better. And if you're worried about wrinkles or looking old, that light will help sort of wash that away. What you don't want to be is in an area where there's poor lighting, because it will just make you look old and no one wants that. So make sure you get a really good photo, a great headline if you can. Perhaps you could use that strap line that we worked on before in one of the earlier tasks, and just make sure all the profile elements are up to date. So I've got a few tips here. I'll let you run through that in your own time. But yeah, key: professional photo, good summary, and a really good headline that gives an example of how you help people in business. The next thing I would ask that you do in social is to set up Google My Business. Now, Google My Business is really good if you are a local business and you know that people are searching locally for a service like yours. Maybe Accountant Cirencester is a great example for that. If you are a local business, you need to have Google My Business set up because of the way that Google biases its own tools to come up first in search. So you may have noticed that when you search for a local business, local takeaway, something like that, that you get this top 3 list of business entries, maybe next to a map so you can see where they are. That is all powered by Google My Business. And if you aren't on Google My Business, it's possible that Google has got your data from another directory, but it might be inaccurate. It may not have the right images on there. The location may be incorrect. I've definitely had that with clients before. So make sure you go and claim your location on Google My Business so that you can control how you're seen there, and it's going to give you a chance of being found in that local search, which is absolutely key. You know, there's no point going and trying to do national search engine optimization when you can't even get the local stuff right. So definitely get on Google My Business. Now, to help you with that, I've included a webinar I did with a friend of mine, Heidi. Heidi's lovely, and she's sort of got a tourism directory business and also a marketing business of her own. So we do a sort of co-webinar where she's talking about Facebook and I'm talking about Google My Business. If you want to watch the whole thing, please do. There's a link to it here. However, if you look at the embed, it's just it's going to forward straight to the bit where I talk about Google My Business. Definitely think it's worth you setting up an account and then watching this, because I go through a very basic review of your profile to make sure it's all up to date. And lastly, the business section. So this is sort of everything else. It's like the admin bit, but all useful stuff nonetheless. So just a couple of things that I think are important here are just to understand some basic terms in terms of marketing and accounting, what they mean, and then setting up some kind of spreadsheet so you can log those numbers on a regular basis. Now, it's up to you what you want to log. The reason, especially if you're new to marketing, the reason for sort of noting down these numbers on a monthly basis is that it helps you understand what impacts your sales and maybe even your profit. Because once you start to understand that, that's knowledge you can use to then feed back into your marketing. And I'll give you an example. Maybe you are tracking where leads come from using Google Analytics. So you're tracking the number of leads that come in from your SEO work, from organic search engines. You're tracking the number of leads that come in from pay-per-click, PPC, which is that paid Google ads, maybe paid Facebook ads. Also maybe social links. So you're just putting out social posts and you're tracking people coming in from that, or maybe email. What I would like to do, or what you want to do, is find out which of those give you the most people who call you on the phone, or fill out a form, or download something, or buy something from your website online. Because once you find out which one of those work best, you can start spending your time and maybe your money on focusing on that one particular channel. But unless you're logging the numbers and looking at the numbers on a regular basis, you won't know which work. So I've linked here an example spreadsheet under task 34, where you can go and maybe use that to start off with and expand from there. And just to finish off, finally, and you can do this if you're a club member or not, and you're working through this, book a free marketing call with me. I do ask that you've kind of worked through as much of this as possible, so you've got lots of good questions to ask rather than just skipping to this. But you can just book a call with me for half an hour and we can chat over some of the things you found in there, and hopefully I can help you move forward with that marketing. And if you need support, you'll have it. I can give you prices for that as well. So once you've finished all of those, you've gone through all of them, that is complete. Yeah, you've done the core stuff for your foundation stage. And if you're interested in continuing, then we'll be setting up the pro and expert levels of these task lists but they'll all be under my marketing club. So you'll need to join those first before you get access. Hopefully that's been useful to you. Right, let's end that screen share. I'm going to come back to the slides. So it's always fun to go through that, always fun to try new things. Now, hopefully, there's so many things I've pointed out there. There's got to be one that you can do that you're not doing. I know that I've pulled out a few. Certainly, when we did the scan of the website with Website Grader, there are a few things that came up, and I go, actually, I've forgotten to do that. Must tidy up that area. So there's going to be one thing that you can do. Note it down, tell someone else, commit to it, put it on your task list. What can you do over the next 30 days that's going to just move you forward in your marketing? That's all you need to be thinking about. Okay, no questions at the moment. I think we're running just about on time, so we'll leave that. The next topic, I'm going to be doing the same sort of thing as this, but for our pro level one. So they're going to be the tasks that will move you forward a bit more. And it's going to be a bit more advanced, a bit more tricky, but should be quite fun as well. And maybe good for some of you who've already been working with me for some time. This might, there may be some things in here that we haven't tackled yet. If you enjoy this, do tell your friends. The club itself is free for the podcast and the newsletter. If people want access to this sort of webinar and the extra support that comes as part of the club, then they've got to upgrade to Pro. It's only £25 a month ex VAT. There is a discount available for buying for the year. And if you're nice, I will be able to find you a discount code that halves that completely. There's no commitment. People can cancel any time. So if you've got friends who you think and businesses who you think might be interested in this and you think it's going to push them further forward, particularly with that Marketing Foundation post, just send an email my way, copy them in, and I'll introduce them to the club as your guest. So thank you very much. That next club session, all about marketing strategy pro level. I brought it forward to the 15th of December just because we're getting too close to Christmas. That's at 1 p.m. lunchtime again, as normal. Do stay in touch. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.